Hey, good morning, Salotina. Atlanot Kudun Zinig, Dakota Dunes Casino at Arsila, see Willis Janvier Hushe, in Telas towards the Lost Saskatchewan, Clearwater River Dene Nation band member, the Heslio and Dunes Zinig, a Treaty 6 territory, Alhun Tati Dasa. And then we're going to go back and forth here, Dene and Cree. And I've got Robert here with me, Robert Masi Cho. And we'll ask you to introduce yourself. We'll get this show going, huh?
Thank you very much. Merci, Willis. Kapi wisami ano tatapituhtian ano sa magagisagag. Thank you for inviting me to be your co-host here this morning. We're sitting at the Dakota Dunes in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, where the press conference for the Ala Lacrosse Boarding School will be held momentarily, Willis.
Tapue, yeah, it's good to have you here. This is a first time for you and I, and I'm pretty sure you've done this with my dad, but now here you are with me,
Oh, I remember those days very well. I did this with your dad many years ago, and I do recall the times that we used to spend each other, and they were all very wonderful memories. And thank you so much. It's a real good thing and I really enjoy being sitting here with you today. Pues na miuhtini with tapuntano na sumotagagi sa Willis. Pues marsi titin.
Tapue, yeah, Nazuan Dunzinik, so see you, Robert John, Ohal Tati Kea, see Dena Adut, Dirt, Métis Nation Conference, Ganetza DSC, and then Robert De Cree Mitchif, both?
Uh-huh.
Cree,
Yes,
You'll
yes.
be translating, you'll be
Yes.
speaking,
Yes.
sharing everything in the Cree and Mitchif language here throughout the morning. We're just, it's going to start in about 5 minutes, and we're going to hand it over to the press conference, and then we're going to be showing it here. So,
Right on. That's going to be good. Aya, omagi o tigan tuhta make me go sa maga kan tuhtoya. Utang kapihtina o mag press conference o magawi tagok mi go ma manis ka mag tapi papihtigo o tata ego tayo tohsi go ispigo. Utagagin tuhtina o ego ma mi go sa mag kispin kikitap min nanuta. Utagan tuhtina o kyogi go taga kapigig sipa o taga kapiwap nan. Kapihtina wa mami watso mag kama maniska komi. Willis?
Nazum. So, don't zinik about Lumslabag Ion was too. I know radio, they get the read on the Bunny Cherzen. I'm not sure if Pat Ani Lauto, but don't zinik 10 o'clock on Bonivia Ladrit. Moderator Anne Lafleur and Emile Janvier, by Yatini out and then Cree Chumit Ayatiu, then Lumslad Deneatia. Opening prayers. Aboni the Michelle Leclerc, Nohabayatini, our Vice President Leon, and then you're Louis Gardner, the Artiu Dungabi, and then Dwayne Favell doing all about 10 minutes each day Artiu, and then you're in Bala to Torlunt questions you can see that was El Kurwaja, and then right around at 12 o'clock today, Balas and Dunzinik so Dunzinik Denechu Cree Adut as I see Willis Janvier showed Robert Morasti. Hello, everybody on Radio Land, if they're tuning in now, if they've connected. But, Robert, what is it like for you to be here? I know
I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah.
Yes, and I'm happy to be sitting here right beside you right now. I can hardly wait to find out, see what press conference is going to say to us. I have been getting messages since yesterday. People knew that I was coming in today, yesterday, and they've been asking me, are we getting compensation? Are they going to be talking about compensation? Some of these people have been waiting for many, many years.
Yeah.
They've been there before I was in there. I went into the Isle Cross boarding school, residential school, in 1956.
Yeah.
And I was there right up until the 1960s. People were there before me. Yes.
So a lot of people they're waiting to see what's going to go on here, and I guess we all don't know. It doesn't say in the agenda or anything, and this is a big moment for the Métis Nation to. I think one of the things is to acknowledge the Alacrosse boarding school as one of the residential schools, correct?
Yes.
That's one of the things here too.
Yes, to give you a little bit of history, the Isle of La Crosse boarding school was there before the Beauval Indian Residential School and many others. The Isle of La Crosse Residential School, uh, many of the people that attended the Beauval Indian Residential School were in Isle of La Crosse.
Mm.
And then while they were building the one in Beauval, so when the Beauval Indian Residential School was completed, many
Mm-hmm.
of the residential school survivors that attended Isle of Crosse relocated to Beauval. But
Oh, okay.
yes, that's how it went.
Mm-hmm.
And then Isle of Crosse kept on going.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the First Nations people went to, to Beauval. Some stayed behind, though.
Mm-hmm.
They could have been Michif or Métis
Yeah.
or non-status, put it that way. Later on, they became Bill C-31s and became status First Nation people.
Yeah. 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 You know, it's very interesting when you put it that way. They took you and put you in the boarding school, and they must have saw you as an indigenous person back then, but they don't acknowledge you. You know what I mean? Like the
Exactly. I remember when I was just a kid because my mom and her friends were talking outside the house, and it's a good thing that I could understand our language because they were speaking in our language, Cree and Michif at the time, and mostly Cree. See, Cree is Michif is comprised 90% of Cree and 10% Michif, which is French words. And at the time, they said we have to put our children in there, and otherwise they're going to take them away. And if they didn't follow those instructions, they would even get punished. They would even get punished themselves. Our parents were going to
Mhm.
get punished for not putting us in there,
Mm.
and we would be taken away somewhere else, put somewhere else in Saskatchewan or in Canada,
Yeah. Yeah.
like the scoop, the
Hmm.
six the scoop people.
Yeah. Yeah.
We would have been scooped away as well,
Yeah.
somewhere
Yeah.
or another.
Well, you know, it is a big day here. It's going to start in a couple more minutes. You'll be hearing Dene translations through probably to at the end. We'll probably cut in a little bit in between, and then Robert here is going to talk and speak in Cree Michif language for anybody out in the radio land here. Welcome. I know Pachinak and Isla Cross.
Pachinak and out across Beauval, Jans Bay, Coal Bay will be listening to us because our signal, CILX radio, and out across where I work, reaches Beauval, Jans Bay, Coal Bay, Canoe Lake, and Pachinak. But
Mm.
Patrick will probably be zooming in on us. So
Yeah, yeah. Patrick, yeah. Hello, Patrick. Good morning if you're listening. But yeah, so we're going to be here all morning. It's going to run till about 12 o'clock. And looks like we're going to get started maybe right away here.
yeah, it looks like so. Let's say good morning to everybody that's listening. Good morning, everybody. Marsigan, Tohtoya, Kanuskagi, Sipaya, Question Beauty, Nami Watsuma, and Tohtoya, Puitiusagan, Tohtoya.
Way good stuff. Good morning, Gabina Zuna, Dunzinike, Dakota Dunes, it's Alhun Tatikia, at residential school, boarding school, press conference, Nut, that Igaya TSE, the Gary Jale. So, just like the two of us here are a little unsure what they're going to tell us, but we're going to go it, and we can hear you in Pachinak, they said. So, here, welcome, Masicho live in Pachinak. Yeah, there we go. Look at that. Da sadarut arit salutin da Pachinak not de Masicho it Pat Dejaneer don't radio and oba ani like so and na chu dene adut as adun zinake.
Yes,
And
and we're live in Isle Cross right now as well, and the surrounding communities that are there.
yeah, you know, one of the things is uh, with the boarding schools, they try to take our languages. So we're gonna just go right into it. I'm not. I don't know what Robert is gonna say, and probably vice versa. But we're gonna deliver this in the Dene language and the Cree language as much as we can here. All of it, actually. So if you want, you know,
Yes, just like the old days, just like Willis and I, and actually Willie Billette and I used to do this a lot
Yeah.
after your dad went home to La Loche. But we did this, and and our cue was Willis or Willie. That was our cue. So when I'm done, I'll say Willis, and then you
Mm.
go. So
Okay.
that's a good way.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when you're done, you'll say Robert.
Robert. Yeah.
Yes,
That's a good
very
one.
good.
See, good tips. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm still new, and this guy's a long time legend here. As he said earlier, he's done this with my father, my late father, but I'm still learning. So I thank you. Appreciate anything you can pass on to me.
Well, I'll try as much as I can to help you along here this morning. We will translate into both languages as we're here. Gapigisquati nani snisia hulisasche umagakyogi goyo tagapihta meguta. Kispin kapio tangap gaya penang kapigsipa skukta puna kamigistik. Napigisquatana nakmina. We'll do some interviews as well. Here's the mayor of Isla Lacrosse. You maybe have met Dwayne,
Yeah. Yeah.
Your Honor, Mayor Paywell.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well.
after we're done the conference, Willis, we're being Zoom here in Isla Cross. You'll come and you'll talk to us,
Yeah.
and so the people will hear you as well. Give us an idea of what you think.
Line them up. Line
Yeah,
them
so,
up. Eh?
okay, line them up for us, and okay, all right, okay. Sishwa. Now let me take my earphones off, Mayor Fable, and I didn't catch exactly what you said. Let me take my earphones off.
Alrighty, kudun tinage salotine I duhtare. Thel tu boni dia dila. And yeah, I know see alla cross you patchinag boniture I surrounding communities not at the dun tinake edre boni the red and tino bonint see the region that you got the but another camera board as and John I online with ide. Kolle the radio garultane doing zinnig you'll get the audio that you got TC and I'm sure Pat Degener altana touring that's in new and Alacross who went the area no banunt on the last so I must salutine and Robert.
Thank you so much, Willis. I just received word here that there's also members of the First Nations, the Saskatchewan First Nations leadership here to support what's happening in Isla Lacrosse. And I'll give you the names right away here. Thank you so much. We have Dutch Lara here as well. And
Dutch Lara is the second vice chief there.
yes, the second vice chief, Dutch Lara, is here supporting what's going on here today, which is really good. I'm really happy to hear that. Ayake omo tigan tohtoya utohse agam tapas gan Saskatchewan. The Federation of Saskatchewan Indigenous First Nations utaya Dutch Lara, the second vice chief utaya. Llegaron amigos o mawista. Yeah. Ipisi tuskagi tano so taga miigwaso magkwais papihuak mamoga po suiti miigwaso magiwewa pahtaman what I see utamiigwaso magawa pahtaman mamisawo mo to mamaskay gano matagapia matiniga na po ang timi sa tigo tisame na matwinaga matwepo the residential school survivors wada media suito waskapuak igunigan go tamigwaskaya sa Willis.
Massi kosu anita yaltiero tu dahu are and nether adelt thel tu boni the media then in dela so a video on aljara yatu I believe news get the board tondi but tower net did I and then in DLC the second vice chief Dutch Lara the first FSIN the Métis Nation health down in to supporting law lisi adre gani at least no anil adre class action lawsuit gaya tias and doing zinik so just a heads up there masi choner husunt as hello in an order at asida then and cree midshift doing zinik so Facebook, YouTube, Robert.
ano sumagagi sigak unitedforsurvivors.ca kagigatsitinnan kispin. If you want to listen, you can reach us at unitedsurvivors.ca as well as Javi's Zoom. Here no sumagagi sigagota. Ano skagi sigagota kawapahtina wota kapihtina tan sigagi sa pamhigoya kenoti apitogus sana ganti snamatugang woksagita wakagi kagaya. Ano iwan mano sa magagi siga kawiya ay muta ko. Wesui when yasta sa kwesui gamgo kisikit sa higit yegumota. The Isla Lacrosse School Survivors wesui no ayawi wak iwisikit sa higit Gukan magagi may pamhitsik, isko kano sa magagi sigagi gan stawimitsik, iga gabarma, o tagam tapas kan Saskatchewan, Canada, iwin stawita, kuawama, the boarding school, the Isla Lacrosse Residential School, much iwin stawita ko, much dala tap, iwipi tukti, sige ko ta dala tap, tawas kapitsik, taimuta ko, tan sumagawi sa tapahamatu, ang kawi sihta ko, Willis.
Masi. So, doon zinik edrit ay historic class action lawsuit hulya. Ay gan yatias so edrit ay etchait ay survivors ay school line danisi intergenerational survivors in nila all across a residential school. A compensation base na tu ilada lianisi ay sano danisi na tu their intergenerational trauma base so ayiganda yatiara dun zinek edrit that ubonil tiu I lawyer ya ba ala na sit and like and that's a day ayiganda yatias and dun gabi ada masino Robert.
Ayo, ano sumagagi sigago ta kapia kapihti no go naguto asugo go across survivors iguas utawasam suawa intergenerational survivors iguto sasagit tawakoma the residential school igutiu saya wistawami nanma hipiwita ko tan sumagagi sa may pamihi chek kagi tamahi sige go timigwatsi go te suwaso chek Nigiskihtin, nigiwapa, tiniwama, kita mahituan. The Court of Queen's Bench, kagipihto kata, sa kutakpi sa mewanma, mihtsatoski, umaya, higipi, chiskwa, kapihtawana, nagiwa.
Masicho.
open up for questions at the end of the session today. So we're going to open up today with our Vice President of the Métis Nation, Michelle Leclerc.
Thank you, Tansei. Welcome, everyone. I just want to acknowledge that we are in the homeland and the heartland of the Métis Nation and Treaty 6 territory. I also want to acknowledge our guests from the First Nations community that are here to support us today. I want to acknowledge our president, Glenn McCallum, who is here. Glenn, stand up, give us a wave. Glenn and his wife, beautiful wife, is here supporting him as well, and he is a survivor. So I want to acknowledge that. I want to thank Antoinette and Emile for their prayers and their wise words that lift us up. And I want you to remember what they looked like. These are individuals that are elders in our community, and they're in their 70s, but they were children. And they were children that attended the Isle Cross Residential School. And the survivors that sit in front of us, who we support, are survivors, and they were children. They were taken from their homes and put into residential schools. I'm here today to both advocate and support the Isle Cross Residential School survivors, Métis residential school survivors, all that attended the Isle Cross School. So you have some context. Isle Cross is the second oldest community in Western Canada. It will be, in 2026, 250 years old. Not long after the community started, the church moved in, and they started day school. And that didn't work so well because the kids weren't going to school. So they decided to create a residential school. The Isle Cross Residential School is one of the oldest schools in Canada. So when you think about that and you put it into context, over 100 years and 6 to 7 generations of harm in that school. And it didn't just affect Isle Cross. It affected all of the surrounding communities in Northwest Saskatchewan. Emile Janvier, who was one of our elders, is from Laloche. And so all of those communities are affected. And what we see now is we see the fact that people they have not been acknowledged, but nor has the harm, the generations of harm. And we have, I look out into the audience, a number of intergenerational kids that have been affected. And you look to our communities in Northwest Saskatchewan, and you see the harm. You see the suicides. You see the abuse of drugs and alcohol. You see beautiful communities, but you see the loss of language, the loss of culture, the grieving for the land. That was as a result of this residential school that has not been acknowledged. And as we know, just as in Indian residential schools and the settlement, the harm is tremendous. Kids faced abuse, violence, sexual assault repeatedly. This isn't the first time that Isle Cross has asked for acknowledgement. There was a lawsuit that was filed about 15 years ago, and I won't talk about that so much, but they're still fighting for justice. They're still sitting here today, and I know people in Isle Cross are listening and in all of those other communities, and they have not had justice, and many of those survivors have passed away. In the last year, we've lost so many survivors who had such hope that they would be acknowledged and compensated. Multiple governments, both at the federal and provincial level, have been pressed on this issue. And we hear a lot of yes, we need to deal with this. Yes, they need to be acknowledged, but nothing ever seems to happen until we take it to the courts. This is a moral issue. We have a number of settlements for Indian residential schools, and this one has not been acknowledged. And everybody is aware that it was a residential school. So the Isle Across Residential School Committee have filed a class action lawsuit against the federal and provincial governments for the survivors to receive proper recognition and compensation for the harms and abuses suffered by students. And not only by students, the communities need reparation. The MNS, on behalf of the Metis community in Saskatchewan, supports the new proposed class action lawsuit and joins the plaintiffs in urging both governments to negotiate. We had entered into a memorandum of understanding with Canada in 2019, and we hope that the spirit of that memorandum of understanding continues. Both governments of Canada and Saskatchewan have made commitments in walking the path of reconciliation, which includes justice and healing. We heard our Prime Minister not too long ago that every residential school in Canada there needs to be closure, and it needs to happen now. Coming to the table to negotiate early and find a resolution that addresses the injustices of many survivors who have passed away without any recognition of their experience, without compensation, can help stop the compounding of this injustice. We need to act quickly. The youngest survivors from when the school closed in the 1970s are now in their 50s. If we can't reach an early resolution to this, the plaintiffs will pursue this litigation vigorously, and we as the MNS support them wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Leclerc. And now we will move on to survivor Louis Gardner.
Thank you very much. Dan seconded now. Lanete. My name is Louis Gardner. I'm a survivor from Isle Across. I attended a residential school from 61 to 69. I was 5 years old when I went into the school. Now, when you're 5 years old, you're still a kid, and you're not sure what you're you just want to be a kid. You're not sure what you're getting into. So those are some of the challenges that I think right away we faced going in there. But as a survivor, I speak for all the survivors that are in front of us here. The survivors who are listening, and the survivors who are not with us today. They never had a chance to tell their story. We suffered the same trauma as all residential schools. It was the same. The agenda was to take the culture out of the child. That was the agenda. We couldn't speak our language. We couldn't even, they separated the survivors. The males were on one side, females on one side. We couldn't even go see our sisters to speak to them. Very challenging. I had a number. And I had to remember that number because I couldn't use my name. Nobody could use their name. They say they call you out, number 48. You had to come right away. And if you didn't, they call it the strap was the weapon. And the strap was, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen it. It did a lot of damage. And if you try to pull back, that's an extra 2. So little things like that really hit home for all the survivors. I think the people are tired, the survivors are tired. This file has been with us since 2005. We had hope. When the announcement was made, there was agreements, and we asked, what about Isla Cross? But all due respect, that was AFN that negotiated with the government of Canada at that time. And they spoke for their people, First Nation side. And then we asked, what about us as Isla Cross? Because we did have a lot of First Nations attend our school also. And I know there was a lot of interaction with the Bouvel Residential School. We had supervisors that exchanged, that went there back and forth. We even had some survivors that attended both schools. So we knew there was a connection. And like I said, the strap was our main weapon. If you didn't do what they wanted, that was what you got. We had a few survivors that ran away from the school. They were out looking for them. I was one of them. They had a search team looking for us, but I won't tell you where my hiding spot was, but yeah. But they were strict. Like even about clapping. You clap once, you have to get up. You clap twice, little rules like that, you can go eat. Time to go eat. So you had to really pay attention. If you didn't, like I said, the strap was there. And we lost everything. We lost our language, our culture, our identity. And all we ask for is to be treated fairly as survivors. We felt we were all one family. First Nations, Metis, that's how we felt. And today I still remember a lot of survivors that were from the surrounding communities, right from La Lanche to Green Lake. You go to Buffalo Narrows, Dillon, Turner Lake, a lot of First Nations communities, Bouvel. So it was really challenging. And I'm sure if you allow the survivors to speak, they'll tell you the same story. So very challenging in terms of how we had hope. I remember the 2005 announcement. I remember government coming to Isla Cross and tearing down our building because we wanted to get rid of the memories. So those are the things I think as survivors I speak on behalf of that we want some kind of recognition and to be treated fairly. I think very important. I think we were, as Vice President Michelle had said, that as a community, we're 246 years old. A lot of history in Isla Cross. A lot of history in Northwest Saskatchewan, even the surrounding communities. My parents were survivors, but they were also traditional users. They lived off the land. And that was our culture. But when I went in there at 5 years old, we lost it. But before I spoke midship when I went into the school, not very much English. But we were told you cannot speak that language, not while you're here. So we had to learn English fast. And if we were caught speaking our language, the strap was there. My brother, I can tell, witnessed, and I know some other survivors, some of the abuse that they actually endured. Like, how do you sit in your boxes, they give you boxes like this, and you sit around and they make us, some survivors wear diapers and they think it's a fashion show. Embarrassment. And I know my brother faced that. And he ran away, never came back. He went into the bush. Survived off the land. Until an accident happened when he was 19 years old. So those are some of the stuff I think that, we really question and want to work towards. And I thank the MNS leadership for standing with us. I think it's very important that we need to tackle this together as a one Métis family also. So thank you very much, and we hope that this announcement today, that we hope that the file can move forward aggressively, because a lot of our survivors are getting up there in age, and there's not many of us left. And we need to tell our story, and and it affects the intergenerational. Very important, intergenerational, like communities are suffering. We need healing. So with that, I didn't get the bell, I'm not sure. Am I doing okay? Okay, yeah. Merci, it's now all, and thanks for listening to me as a survivor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Louis. And now I would like to go over to Dwayne Favel.
Thank you very much. Marsigit na ok tamskat na ok naskum na ok akiwan sutagapita kohtik. Welcome everyone. My name is Dwayne Favel. I'm the mayor of Isla Cross, and as the mayor of Isla Cross, I've always known that we all have a ethical, moral responsibility to settle the claims of the Métis residential school system in this country. And more specifically, we're talking here about the Isla Cross residential school. Well, Isla Cross is a historic Métis community. The residential school system was in Isla Cross since the mid 1800s. And Saskatchewan did not become a province until 1905. So the residential school system was in Isla Cross for approximately about 100 years. Saskatchewan became a province in 1905 and inherited the residential school system. And they continued to run the residential school the way it was run prior to 1905. So we need to understand that the survivors over 100 years within the Isla Cross residential school system suffered the same kind of abuses. They had the same experiences as any other residential school within this country. And arguably, Isla Cross is one of the oldest residential schools in Canada. So I think from that perspective, it's heartbreaking, to know that we're still struggling to get recognized as a Métis residential school, who obviously suffered the same abuses, the same kinds of trauma that everybody else, every other survivor suffered within Canada. So all we want is to be respected, to be appreciated as Métis people, and to get the recognition that we deserve. You know, I commend the First Nations, I commend the Inuit for being able to settle their claims and bring closure to their survivors. We're not there yet, and that's where we're trying to go. You know, we seem, as Métis people and Métis residential school survivors, we seem to be invited to participate in all the ceremonies in Canada that recognize survivors. My late uncle Don Favel was invited to the Harper Apology with several other Métis survivors. They still don't have closure. When Willie Littlechild and Eugene Arcan came to Isle of Cross as part of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, Métis residential school survivors were invited to give their testimony, to talk about their experiences and the trauma that they suffered. They still don't have closure. The Métis survivors from across the country were invited to the apology offered by the Pope in Musqueam's First Nation this past summer. We still don't have closure. The Pope, on his flight home, recognized that this was a systematic approach to genocide within Indigenous people in Canada. The Métis were a part of that systematic process. We still don't have closure. So what we're here today is to appeal to the federal and to the provincial government to come to the table, to have a collegial conversation about our experiences so we can move this issue forward. It's traumatic for all our survivors. Like Louis said, the youngest survivor is over 50 years old at this point. So time is of the essence. We need to bring closure to the Isle of Cross and the Métis experiences within the residential school system in Canada. And I applaud the First Nations, FSIN, who are here today to support us in our effort to get recognition. I commend Second Vice Chief Dutch Laurent, who's here, Ted Quaisons, for their support. Our former MP, Gary Morasti. They've all stood for us and fought for us that we are able to get that recognition that we truly deserve. And the Métis Nation of Saskatchewan, over the past few years, have been strong in terms of their support. We wouldn't be here without the Métis Nation of Saskatchewan right now and the support that they've offered the survivors in trying to get recognition. So, and I think Louis alluded to it earlier. You know, our Métis communities are dysfunctional. There's addictions with alcohol, with drugs. And this can be directly attributed 100% to the residential school system within our communities. So we need to find an approach. We need to find a way to move ourselves forward, to bring health and wellness back into our communities. That has to be first and foremost. Healthy Indigenous communities means a healthy province of Saskatchewan. I don't think there's any other way to look at that. So we need support. We need the provincial government and the federal government to come to the table, to begin a dialogue in terms of settling and recognizing the survivors that sit before us, and all the survivors within the province of Saskatchewan here that attended Métis residential schools. You know, we as Métis people, we need the same kinds of supports to move ourselves forward. We need, first of all, recognition. We need a settlement. We need a legacy fund. We need a healing foundation to move our issues forward and to bring the balance, the harmony, and the health and well-being, you know, that we deserve as Métis people as well. We are people within this country that played a huge role within the 1800s. We helped the expansion of Western Canada. Métis people thrived prior to the residential school system. So we need that support. We as Métis people, we need the recognition that we truly deserve. So we're appealing to the federal and the provincial government to come to the table and negotiate a resolution to the Métis residential school claim. So with that, marsigat now. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Mayor Dwayne Favel. So I would just like to thank Vice President Leclerc, Dwayne, and Louis here for sharing their experiences. It's not an easy thing to do, to be up here and you know, relive some of those things and share with the world, you know, the things, the injustices that have occurred and still impact you and your families and your children. So as an intergenerational survivor myself, my father attended this school and my kuka, my grandmother, you know, hearing from these leaders and seeing their leadership and their experiences and how it's impacted this work, it makes me hopeful as a young person coming into this space. So thank you, and a big round of applause for our wonderful and brave leaders here. And I'd also like to thank Tina Yang from Waddell Phillips. This is a member of the legal team who has been an incredible support to the Survivors Committee and to the Métis Nation of Saskatchewan. So thank you, Tina. Okay, and so now we are going to move the next part of the session to the floor, and we're going to open up for questions from the media. Okay, we have one here. All right, and so what I'm going to ask is if you can introduce yourself and then the outlet that you represent, please. Thank you.
My name is Robert Morasti. I'm the host of a radio show, CILX Radio in Isle Cross, and also a residential school survivor. I'd just like to reiterate what the leaders have said concerning the Isle Cross residential school. I was also 5 years old when I first attended the residential school. Like many others that did run away, my great-grandmother was in her 80s. When I ran away to her house. My great-grandmother remembers Louis Riel. Is the government's fight with Louis Riel, or is it with us children of the residential school? Who can answer that? Is that why we're not being recognized?
Well, I don't think that we can sort of make that assumption But you're right. When you think about how Métis have been treated over the last 100, 200 years since that, I mean, maybe that's one of the reasons. I mean, I can't presuppose that, but certainly we're hoping that the government of Canada and the provincial government of Saskatchewan will negotiate, will discuss, and do what is right.
Thank you, Vice President. Next question.
Kelly Malone with the Canadian Press. For the legal team, has a statement of defense been filed?
No, neither of the statements of defense have been filed. They've both asked for waivers. As you may know, it's customary in some class actions in some jurisdictions for the defenses to be delayed until after the certification process, which we are pursuing alongside, as you heard from our speakers today, alongside an attempt to settle these claims.
And why not include the church, or is there a plan to include the church, especially now with the comments of Pope Francis on his way leaving Canada?
Part of our legal strategy, I can't really get into it, but certainly the focus right now is on the claims against Canada and Saskatchewan.
Joel Willick here with NBC Radio News. I know you probably can't speak specifically to the 2005 lawsuit, but just with that being in the courts currently, why did you feel this new lawsuit was necessary and how it's different than that 2005 suit?
Right. So the 2005 lawsuit was commenced by a different set of plaintiffs with different representation. That lawsuit hasn't progressed since there were some steps in 2006, 2007, hasn't progressed meaningfully since then. The plaintiffs in this action, which we're calling the Gardner action, Louis Gardner being the first name plaintiff, the plaintiffs in the Gardner action intend and are imminently to bring an application to stay that previous action so that the Gardner action will be the only one moving forward on behalf of Isla Cross survivors.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions from the floor?
This is Pratyush Dayal from CBC Saskatchewan. Just two quick questions. First, you mentioned about that there are...
Sorry, can you speak into the mic a little bit?
I'm
Thank
sorry. You mentioned that there are like less and less survivors in the community. Do you know any number of survivors we have passed away in the last year?
So I believe the question was, are there...
Do you know the number of survivors we have lost in the past year?
So in the last year, to our knowledge, and we have a fairly robust list of the survivors, we've lost 20 in the last year.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And the second question is that, is there any financial number to the compensation itself you might be seeking?
So obviously, financial compensation is part of what we're seeking as relief for the claims. I can't give you a number. You could look to previous settlements to give you a sense of what the universe of outcomes might be. But the action is at such an early stage that I can't really give you anything more definite.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kelly Malone with the Canadian Press. What broke down with the conversations after the MOU was signed? And how will this class action change those conversations, which is what you say is kind of the goal initially?
So those conversations were without prejudice discussions, so the details of them can't be revealed.
How do you hope these conversations differ from previous conversations with the federal government and the provincial government?
Well, we certainly hope that the federal government and the provincial government will come to the table at this point. I think that there was a good intention on behalf of the federal government. I think the spirit and intent of the MOU from 2019 was to try and settle this action. There was other things that we can't really discuss that have impacted this action going forward in the way that it had intended, I think, in 2005. And we also haven't had, a lot of discussion with the province of Saskatchewan. And at the end of the day, the province of Saskatchewan have to come to the table. And so that's been part of the delay. So there's a number of complicating factors with respect to the action that before. I don't know that our conversations have necessarily broken down with the federal government. I think there's good intentions there. We're certainly talking to them. And so we hope, we really encourage the province of Saskatchewan to come to the table on this issue.
And I'll also add, I think, we're extremely hopeful, that the First Nations, Inuit were successful in settling the residential school issue, the day school issue, and now just recently the boarding school issue. So, we're hoping that the governments will come to the table in good faith and settle the Métis residential school issue.
Hi, Libby Giesbrecht, 650 CKOM. Is there any concern that this legal action might have a negative impact on the memorandum of understanding you guys have signed?
No, not at all. I think the memorandum of understanding is sort of a basic unit in order for us to have those conversations. I think it will only make it stronger. And I think the conversations will only get more robust.
Montana Getty Global News. Have they given you a reason why you haven't been recognized?
Well, I can speak to sort of the legal side of things. After the IRSSA was signed in 2005, there was a process by which schools could be added to the list of recognized Indian residential schools. And there was an attempt made to add the Isle Cross School, and it was rejected according to the criteria set out in that process as being a school that was operated by the mission without government involvement. Now, we know that's not true based on the factual record. We have evidence otherwise. And so we're not concerned about the implications of that, but that was the official reason why it was not included as part of the IRSSA.
Thank you, Tina, and thank you, media, for the questions. We're going to move to some questions from our guests that are joining us via Zoom. Okay, we have one more question from the audience.
Yeah, this is William Case from Isle Cross. I'm a boarding school survivor. And I have my wife here with me. I'd like to acknowledge her, Evangeline Case. She's also a survivor with the day users. And we've been waiting such a long, long time. It hurts to see our neighboring communities such as Pachinak and the people that went to the Beauval Residential School be acknowledged, and we were never acknowledged. Like Louis alluded to the fact that the staff between Beauval and Isle Cross were regularly exchanged. So it says it all there. There had to be some involvement in the funding part of it, because that's what the whole that was the whole question that was thrown. Well, we're not federally we're not responsible for you, is what we were told. Now we are federal responsibility. The Métis Nation is under the federal responsibility. I recently got my my status a couple of years ago. It'll be a couple of years in February. It was a long time coming because my mom was definitely First Nations, but she never did get her treaty. She also spent 9 years in a boarding school in Beauval. So it's very intergenerational impact. We normalized everything that happened to us at the boarding school. You know, we thought alcoholism was normal because my mom and dad got into it. My dad never did enter any schools, but he was able to write and sell Libics. Taught himself that. My mom spoke Michiv, and also learned a lot of French in Beauval. She spent 9 years there with her two sisters. Reasoning is their mom died and the old man couldn't take care of them. They had too many kids. They kept the boys but sent the girls to school. Just imagine what my mom went through. At age 6 years old, they were brought into Beauval. They weren't able to go home till the spring. I was lucky enough to go home on maybe once a month when I was going to school. I attended boarding school all across from 1956 to 1966. On and off, I was able to stay at home. I used to run across the lake to go to school in the wintertime. In the summertime, I couldn't because there was just a little trail along Muskeg from where I lived. But I'd like to acknowledge the Métis Nation for sticking with us for this long. And Mayor Dwayne and Philip DeRocher that kept this thing active and alive. Otherwise, it would have been dead. It's like people didn't want to touch it. But now I think it's alive. But there's a lot of angry people out there, including myself. The lack of communication that's coming to us from the people that are sitting up here. Now, who's muffling you guys? I'm not sure why, but we need information, no matter how little it is, on a monthly basis at least. Tell us what's going on. If it's nothing, say it. Tell us it's nothing, but there's nobody that ever goes on radio or any media thing to tell us this is what's happening. Maybe it's the lawyers that are telling the people up in the panel there not to give out any information. We can't give that information, but we do need that information as survivors. I'm 72 years old. You know, I could die tomorrow, next week, next month. We just lost a cousin of mine who was in the boarding school also for the same length of time as me. And friends, I don't know how many friends I lost in the last 3-4 years that are never going to see anything. But we need better communication to people like me. There's a lot of people out there. You guys meet on a regular basis, but we don't hear a sound from you guys. Let's hear it. Especially the guys in the panel there. We need your information as to what's going on.
Thank you, William.
It really does hurt. Are you cutting me off or what?
No.
Okay,
no.
well, I want to thank the panel for starting the new lawsuit. And the committee members, please, trying to communicate to us. This is what you're there for.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, William.
Thank you, William. And you make some good points. And one of the big points is always communication. And so we're with this new lawsuit, we're going to try and do way better than what we had before. We've started a website. We will be talking to the radio stations on a regular basis, keeping people updated. So you're right. Absolutely. We hear your frustration.
Thank you. Thank you, William, and thank you, Vice President Leclerc. Now we're going to move to Zoom. We have a few questions from the media on Zoom.
We have two questions from Shireen Nareen from winspeaker.com. What is the 2019 MOU VP Leclerc is referring to?
In 2019, the Government of Canada, the Métis Nation of Saskatchewan, and the Isle La Crosse Steering Committee signed a memorandum of understanding, the purposes of which was to lay the groundwork for discussions with the goal of looking to resolve the legacy of the Isle La Crosse School, and hopefully as part of that to resolve the legal claims. So as VP Leclerc has discussed, the discussions immediately following the signing of the MOU were unfortunately not fruitful, but we are hopeful that the MOU, which is still in effect, will continue to guide the spirit of Canada's approach and hopefully also influence Saskatchewan's approach to the new class action lawsuit.
And for legal counsel, what is the timeline for certification and filing statement of the claim?
Sorry, I missed the last part of that question.
What is the timeline for certification and filing statement of claim?
Sure. So as we've discussed, or as you've heard from the panel, the goal is to move forward on both tracks as quickly as possible. So we are going to be preparing our certification materials, and unfortunately, I can't give you a strict timetable. It's in many ways dependent on the availability of the courts and, of course, the availability of Canada and Saskatchewan. But we're going to be moving as quickly as possible. And we will be providing regular updates on our website as well for the survivors and for anyone else who's interested.
And we'll try to get APT and to ask their own question. Go ahead.
Hi, good morning. Could you tell me, I'm Kathleen Martins from aptnews.ca in Winnipeg. I wanted to know how many children in total were forced to attend the residential school.
So the estimate that has been gathered from the documents to date is approximately 1,500 children in total attended the Isle La Crosse school. And we're not sure how many of those people are still with us today, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you. And what has been the response from the Saskatchewan government in total up to today?
So I can't speak to discussions that they might have had with council in previous actions, but the claim has been filed in late December 2022. It was served on Saskatchewan. They've responded to it, and that's as far as we've gotten so far. And hopefully, as we've discussed, they'll be responsive in terms of engaging in a negotiated resolution process.
Okay, because I'm virtual, I don't know if people in the room were given a copy of the original filing, but which court was it filed in, like which center?
So the statement of claim in the Gardner action was filed in Saskatoon on December 27th. Thank you, Philip. December 27th, 2022. And a copy of it is available on our website, as well as the unitedforsurvivors.ca website.
Okay, and your website, I'm sorry if I missed this at the start. What is the name of your firm?
Waddell Phillips. And we maintain a website for this action, which is accessible at islelacrosseclassaction.com and .ca.
Okay, thank you. And I had a follow-up question for the Mayor, Favel. Are you yourself a survivor of this school?
Yes, I would be recognized as a day school survivor. I attended the same school that was run by the mission, and but I got to go home at the end of the day, and that's a big difference to what the survivors experienced that were pulled from their homes from the surrounding communities and were forced to stay there 10 months out of the year.
That is an important distinction. However, you were not included in the day school suit, were you?
Yes. Yes, all the students that attended the Isle La Crosse school, run by the mission at the time until it closed in the mid-1970s will be included as day school survivors.
Sorry, just to,
Okay,
sorry,
sorry.
just
Yeah,
to
go ahead.
clarify and to answer, I think what you were asking. Both day students and the boarding and residential students are included in this class action. The Isle Across School was not included in the list of institutions which were in the McLean Day School settlement. I think that's what you're referring to.
Correct, but I'm glad the mayor noted that both day and residential are included in this new class action. That's correct?
Yes.
Okay, and just lastly, if I could ask the Vice President of the Métis Nation of Saskatchewan, what is the form of your support? Is it financial? Is it moral, emotional? You mentioned earlier that you support this class action, but in what form?
In all of those forms. So we are supporting their the residential school survivors legal fund. We're also supporting them, morally, ethically, emotionally. They are part of our community, so they have our full support, and that also includes financial support.
Are you able to elaborate on the financial support, like how much it is and what it's paying for?
Sorry, can you repeat that? I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Oh, I apologize. Are you able to elaborate? Sorry, I'm going to turn myself up here. Can you elaborate on the financial support, how much it is and what it includes?
So the Métis Nation of Saskatchewan are essentially paying the legal bills. Waddell Phillips is acting on a reduced hourly rate on this action, and that's about all I can tell you.
No, that's great. That helps a lot. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you to the media, to our audience for the questions, and to our viewers tuning in via Zoom and on Facebook. So I'd like to bring your attention again to the website that we have above and then on some of the shirts that survivors are wearing, and it's unitedforsurvivors.ca. There's a bunch of questions with answers just alluding to more of the details on the survivors group and this class action suit. So please visit unitedforsurvivors.ca. And once again, thank you so much for your time, for your attention, and for your support for the Isle Across Survivors Committee. And on behalf of the MNS, we are going to conclude today's event, and safe travels to you back to your homes. And I would like to welcome our elders, our Antoinette Lafleur and Emile Janvier back up onto the stage to do a closing prayer. I would also like to do one last round of applause for our survivors who have traveled from various communities in Northwest Saskatchewan, and to our panelists here for joining us today.
I would like to take this moment. I myself, I'm a survivor. I'm almost 80 years old. And I have waited 75 years of my life. I'm on my 5th generation. It's been a long journey for me and my family. But we continue to pray to our Creator, our God of love. We come to you with respect and humility as we close our meeting today. We ask you, O Creator, to remain with us as we continue to work out our issues affecting our people and our communities. We ask you, O Creator, to bless and guide our work. Continue to help us heal our wounds and the wounds of our loved ones who suffer through these schools. Open our hearts to continue to spread our love and peace to everyone. Amen.
Sorry, dude, Zinega, Marcy, and Stanza. When listening, school I did in What's University, dude, Zinega, Mare, LTU, and not ever I see Wally. Dude, you want to know neither, but I, Allah, Hotu, I see la. And one who has known neither really. The help of another, Dari, Marcy, Hunter, Norris, case. Thank you.
Alrighty. Alrighty, Salotina Kudun Zineke Kanino Banaya Intie. Métis Nation of Saskatchewan. Good ano Dorft Asi Hosi Banchero Alakrasu Torlut I not a daisy Jan Denechu ya Kriya and Naa no by Yase Yailtias and Dunzinike and then at the interview ideas first Denechu and not and I know no hani DLC bahal Yailtu Emil Janvid bahal Yastia denne ano dudani then see the kuya so tell it laxinen bahal Yailtinisa and doon zinik new lawsuit hol nisi the boni there see Gardner lawsuit hanila the Louis Gardner at Tabazitha eight a call yehenila so hunt ade the danitha the go jana collet I look update al see website Métis Nation of Saskatchewan update al and then survivors united for survivors.ca your look updates that yes as the lawsuit court to condisia base al yesi and Hanessa si sare tikut Louis Gardner that behesta to condisia base but ya tiet ya tia that yes, Tio LNEC, and even tapping the henny, and some of the things that unis do boarding school nuts in did da har old Danish, at ila north down and eigani I too could the FSIN supporting lasi Dutch Lara FSIN what's in doing zinik a hell John is a nine though and Dwayne Favell the I too a mayor hel de la kuyi this school line there la day school so their new class action lawsuit any question do the currency both u incorporated ya nila na going forward so that's good then it day school line I know there's some lawsuits altana in lekole but there that transition at Johnny C day school as in boarding school or doing and the same thing so but I believe that's one of the important things Nasa just acknowledgement to and recognize then and yeah say that but addiction intergenerational trauma koni siga da tinisi then Healing Foundation henila da ya tire da tu babanunt on lisi then it's eddiha. So that's very important too. As their lawsuit that somebody him basilondala kui somebody da alti but or I had then counseling services or konti si base lots of things quality the dana or dilondala do yalyare gabi our dealer. Lots of time. It takes time. Do maybe out or nakio ta neno tot igarujelu. So updates are in the United for the number 4 survivors.ca Alacross Residential School Injustice. There you guys. So I'm gonna take a quick break. Then hal here. Then I can tire. So masina who soon I bancherzen or ultane. I'm just gonna talk tabazan I tire maybe pat another day. Yay hey. But good morning, salot in it. I then suslinen and not days in order it. I see. Doing zinek. I'm gonna get somebody and then Robert is going to come join us and do the Cree translation here this morning. So, Masicho, I'll be right back.
Okay, tan sato yando temehtek Numa Robert Morasti. Ego tuma Saskatchewan Dakota Dunes lay up in me watsuma. Anus pugi sita a press conference sayawak. Ego nugo the Metis Nation of Saskatchewan. Ayagitse the residential school survivors o tochi ala lacrosse. O magitsam no sumagayatsik. Iwita ko, iwita mo sige sinua. Tahtugawa pahtako mano sumagagistiga. Tsugasti pa tsugane ayawak CTV, CBC. We go tayawak, iwas simin the Canadian press. Iunugo ga tihto na sumagagisigago ta APTN minota pinuguswak. Kakyo gunigan gata no tao go mano sumagagisigago ta guys pa. Kipigis wak kigisap. The Metis Nation of Saskatchewan Vice President Michelle Leclerc kipigis yaimuta tan suma kayaso sigo tasagit tawakigwame gipiesti kigwama the boarding school ego tegi piesti ego ti igwa Louis Gardner area director ego ti ala across residential school kia su maga area director mina uniga nyumina Louis Gardner wistagi pigis squeal igwas chimina we sweet no api suwe wakiwana mina gipigis squeal Yegunigan ge Wedell. Sikas wake gunigan ge wataga pipigi squeak. Egwa. Egwa sigutagag minego tagi pipigi squeak. Iamuta ko masagit tawa residential school. Aspinoche. Kayas. Misquapo, the province of Saskatchewan. Misquapo didn't even become a province in 1905. Sasegit Samatio. Diala Lacrosse Residential School. Isla Lacrosse, Kihtayu na Gonewan ma Ihtawan. 256 years. Ano sa 1976. In 2026, it'll be 256 years old. They walk ni swamta tumitano nyana num tano go to sapaski. Igwe go te estigo me go sagitawa. Kaya so tse. Igo te estigo me tawan. Igo minan he. Igo tagagit sumata sige go negan ge me gimawa ki go la government. Igit sumata sige go am residential school igo tasagitawa. Igo michate go ta. Ah pupo kagiso tsegan ge First Nations communities. O sige pi sui wage go tasagitawa ki piap. Ipi ganawi mi sige go ta. Igo asche. Jans Bay, Cold Bay, Ila Lacrosse, Beauval, Sipise, La Loche. Sweet you, Chigo, take it. Waskai when I'm here town, they would take it. Be we get sick when I get seen. Kitahtawig wa Boval Indian Residential School kiusihtawa. Ispigagi sihta sige wa Boval Indian Residential School. Anigitahtuy ko tigandawi mi second ge First Nations. Igutigo ye wagi spitswa. Magia pits ko tagag mi nagi pinagatawag ko tamoy gakyaw ko tigitoktiyo. Misat kya pits ko tasagit tawa kitoktiyo. Yeah, across residential boarding school. Ego tagipeya kya pits ko ta. Kinoesek tas tiu yegon ma. Yego may gatsi skogan stawih tako gale government. Mochi win stawih tako so squats. Agam te paskan government of Canada. Ego agam te paskan government of Saskatchewan. So squats mochi win stawih tako. Mochi nadal tapi wipituhti sek. The pipi squata second residential school survivors. The committee yawak. A committee yawak yeguta. Egunigan ge committee and ge. Iga wipig squata sigo ma the government of Saskatchewan. So squats mo Saskatchewan te wipituhti sigota. The pi a pig squata ko. Igo pagota ko yeguta. Tan stona ko yewanama. No so much te wipituhti sik magi guaya. We sui winni go sti ano so magagi sigagi go. Ano so magagi sigag December of 2022 that class action lawsuit kagi pito ko ta sige go ta. Isikit saho sige wali government go. Tan sigo te takam gani go to sigo. Wintenek sis ko skihta go ni go tan test tige go am. Igo me pihu ya ko me go ano so magagi sigag tan se ka weti tuta ko. Kwesi Tuskagiwak, the Metis Nation of Saskatchewan, Kwesi Tuskagiwak, Apupo pa hamla tikli belte pahamok, Gwami Naya, Utaya Waganuskagisigak, the First Nations leadership, Mugimawan, Ted Quizans, God the Dutch La Ra, Utagipitotiwag, Ipisi Tuskagitsik, Ewa. Tinagina sinski kakawit sa mawa kumamatan so magawet itakam kakuti sa atnigan. Tapi hut sige wapago to sa. Utan san magakawe gitsanasan magawi tuta. Wow. Ewa. Tapi umegwaya. Taksikigati. Unista mineg tanagia soson. Louis Gardner. Wipikay mo tamegon ma. Umsito masutan. Kwes nigigitamay ko na ni kutaga soso. Masa po napigis ko yung winan. Igiya utsagaskita yak tayamya nesto tagaya simo ya ego misat mumto na no tsagaskita na tagaya simo yak siswa kitu ewak ego nan hegi go yak ispen gagasat ni tsugoma tagaya simo tsagegi no tsihitsig putan tukta ko kiwe gaiti tsagispen gan tukta ko egi no tsihitsig eyamina kispen umaya kamaya kamigeses tsiki go ina to sigispen Higinuchi, Kapiginuchi, Hayam Hawen, Higuanan, Higiguaya, Higapat, Higit Ituta, Hoigunan, Tagagino, Kagitapista, Hoigam, the residential school. Higua Agistas when he gave me Louis Gardner guy to it geeks up, number 48. Number 48, Higea to Ace and Louis. Higuan Maya, Katipote, muy buen, muy Louis, Sito, 48, Higit to it. Iguana puta pasaguti go. He spent 48 to he spent got tipo to ma. Puta pasaguti go Louis. Iguan man na pieki go yan maya. Ano so magagi kagi sipaya. Ipista maka no so mano so tagagi sipaya. Tan so magagi sa pipa mehis. Iguanigan giguta. The Isle of Cross School Survivors. Utaya waga puto yung nagaskitano ya. Tapi squat. Maganati Mayor Fable. Gamat yun ang nipot. Nga tipo ataw. Matisagis at siyo tapiwit tapat magawa utapen with siyo agan iguan na pitago tiyo yego magagawi pigis ko atago Mayor Dwayne Fable tiyo sa sagit tawak Saskatchewan iguan Mayor Fable tansa wais na miyo tino tapiwit tap miyan kiktap magono misat sweetie kaya pisto sagit tawak kiktap magono.
Okay, well, I'm going to see you, Robert.
Aha. Iko tan sexuapa. Tino mano sa magagisigago. Tama mo open gaya.
Well, I think, I'm extremely hopeful and optimistic, Robert, that this is going to kick off a good path moving forward. I'm really hopeful that, that the provincial government and the federal government are going to come to the table and they're going to start to have a conversation and negotiate a resolution to the Alacross Residential School.
This morning you talked about the Ala Lacrosse boarding school and how long it's been, and you talked about Ala Lacrosse. Would you be able to reiterate some of these words for our audience here this morning?
Yeah, no, I think, Robert, I've always said that, as leaders in Alacross, and throughout the province, and within the Métis Nation, we all have a moral, ethical responsibility, to try and bring closure to the Alacross residential school issue. And that's why we appeal, to the provincial, federal government, to come to the table, to begin to have a conversation and negotiate a settlement
Okay.
for all the survivors.
Aha. Apsis kagaskihtan sa nihiyawisin. Isukuki gaskihtan. Skoki gaskihtan.
Yeah, wala good sana sis no es po mamayan but kagutsista no
Amaga kapiswa yagin nihiyaw ito. Bayo nito po tagi gasit na ya ka. Max puto tayo sa.
Yeah, Max na tao the piro tiu.
Amaga special mga gaimutina manigis-kisan ko is kaimuta ba na magigisip.
Apoy.
Aha. Tano wes nigis kita mon. Terus wes kita mon. Anman maniga kikwitsi mo yan. Ayun lagabar mo go. Kaya pitsinut nasik. Kaya pitsinut nigitsik. Kaya pitsan meno Louis Riela inut nasik. Kinaw mahtuhon mahtuho ako. Tapos kaya pitskya no may pagamskago. What I would say was the government is still at war with Louis Riel. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and they have a difficult time, because we're Métis, we've been excluded, and I think we recognize that.
Uh-huh.
But we're trying our best, to bring them to the table and to recognize that Métis students went through the same experiences.
Okay. Right on. Merci, buddy.
Okay, merci.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Dwayne Fable. Ano po gagi sa pigis kwatak? Amaga. Iguaya. Ano sa mga ito Mayor Fable. Tunigya apis kinwis ka lagabarma. Napaksi mo nanak. Muem tuniginwis. Napaksi mo. Napaksi mo nanak. Napaksi mo na nantote ako itahamig siya kito. Wami sumaya, gasit na ako, tanihiwis, wasat, sipuanin mo, sugot at pipigis ko at ako. Mga gutsitayak, igata gaya simo, ano sa mga tuktoy ako ta. Igunan haya, kapihtiwana, nagota Max Moore, nagawigasit na, Leonard Minota, may was matina nipo, Iwan namin katipihtawana na kulas jabe tapigiswat yunan he. Kaskita so tatapiswat. Umagiyaw tiga swap mi akano sa magagisigak. The Ala Lacrosse boarding school. So squats much nan to. Isigitap mi go itse. Much swat sigitap mi itse. Kichigitap mi itse. Much instawi mi itse. Maguti Maxi. Pa, wana was Max Moore na pigiswatan. No ba, lapit tagakaya. Inihiyaw iti kami mistahagi wen stoktak Max kwesen stoktam yuchipa nihiyaw wen kami na mitchef mi na kwesen stoktam wan wichiwa kada po wes na mi utino te pia pianias o taga pigis kwane
Okay.
tasik sen stoktina nos kagi sigak
Por pisa tabak ngama ki wet pi costano. Alacross Residential School, day school is igual ma. We piste contato, we assume provincial government, federal government, kapima mopto genost. Kamata masikia, ki we chito so. Sami stark nagatuguna nagase.
Ta puta na kakeskes noa tete unegan ge kuichiwa ganna nagan ge ganagatuga ko.
Women mistadi akusitoga. Ya pizza. Mommy wakabota. Kam wuce hiwuto. Ki wuce tispen. Nusti yo patingi wuce pe wamis nanto. Spayanto wana mistadi wana abik skota wa.
Mitsati sa mga no maya ti papupunta no sa sayawagi so may ti tahto pupunya na 1950s is no taga swaswa.
1956 pa hamden stuff. Taga swaswa.
Kas kunya nani tahto pupunyan.
They were 50, those were 61 of the day school we got moved and those were grade 9 boy and the Utigo and Gidito than Saskatchewan. And still escaping in the big Mostan High School. So when we me high school say I know it's also people. But just our own school division I got it number 74, 75. Went to English to a year, but first graduate to I called grade 12. After our own school division, I got it number. Fully Paris to I number.
Kigun number gagamigo in taga swaswa.
Number 66.
Number 66.
Uh-huh.
E when number 44 ni gagamigo yan ya speak taga swaswa no. Louis Gardner sa tagapig squita nos kagigsap. Tan siktihtaw tapos ti naman kagi sa pamhigo ya kami go tagagi migo kagi nuchi sigawa sa kay tweet.
Tapos tinahan iyo patin ito na mo tapos naman but mo istahan mo to sa kut isago mo to ti makonga. Ang kagi patiko to. Asku uskiniksi sa man iyo mo gimusta to. Tips kagi pinata na pirana. Stis normal na si hatana. Ikunin na room lagi to sa hato na lagi pimatu ito. Lagi tagman Stis Lawrence experience. Awi ka fu pinas tin ya mo ka pinata mo lagi tagman lagi ko stabana. Tay mamo in a room and again no little basic tagestig so. No spogo yo patin one ma humanes Mr. Squeeze tagman na to tamagdan to gito tago to di share pugin uta to na negota di frère pucha di perven nanto kitu tawo so mo gigata e wan mo po esta ma.
Tani kitu go may like government o gagawin sa tawista ko ay masagit tawa.
Sus kwasa ipim go e kwasa besto go sa na kapu. Pi bombing range and sa sewe o can relate cool they could give me go to 20 years after about this economic development program kwa timigo ego. Capita for me compensation I muto mga pisto ko sa kagi paktaho ato tiagi upehigi to wuta kagi mato to from that land. May ways what economic development po sumuna wag igi pakna to. Luga pisto ko sa nagigi masaki to but may nok mi go nok sumuna pisto ko sa no tipio. Municipalities who pamni organ on our behalf. We'll take coming along.
Big piece of wagis December 2022 class action lawsuit to Weddell. We are si Haswag you Weddell and get Tasik. So hima wagi wet a quippy hotasik.
So hima og saman kaya tina get petukta utiusta uskalanga sastiga. They want may mo to ipikshwata da na sino kagi mas nahigit kagi mas nahwat mo to sta mo na po status katam na fire kasko yipi hot if they ever have a claim sune omigi we work federal government which most gana gitesta so gane nego igi pakna to magyabit pa hampiag we guitamawa ka and so bungan tono ay wano na kagwita ma kamas na hawe wano siya kamatsa pa yung kakiwa ya
Moska kipigi wi pitto gono maga kay samu takano sa makiksa pa Louis Moska kipigi wi pitto gono me gotaga geswaswin
tapos bistan ipi mi koisin stortin mga pastin ako mamay number niyo ano pastin nga haya mo ta ego mena li frera na ka no te hiwa ko. Just kwape just kono apia pua chalk ne ha te na ni just apia. Moi me na ko ya. Ko spin sam moi gen to ki we ko bad mark ko mi ko. Moi ko show ko to sta na.
Aha.
Si se ki ba na to we. Igi spami ko but at ni gan we never had time to be children, huh? We never had time up to it's where we got to where I not to go, yeah. Residential school, yeah. When my connection is on him and I know to hear. He's up. He's where man, I'm more in Tostagunan, like in the here we go.
Tansige tutti no ki tahto pihu tahto ki we mi go ya ke tan sto ita ko sa ke to tansige tutti no tu.
Well, first of all, I'm getting seen what was got to my to Nick, much mas kishia me na hakiwe. Women of Tasuna or Paknego, which higher for Mwega school, a woman anging nan toga giduta goto. It's been squeeze spiga tapto and togi dutao. Nan tobu guy mutako, nan tobu much mutako to eat to feel good, to feel good about themselves. Kistanomina gagi nuti go, man, and I took a little taco, Kistanomina, we have to start healing. But when you healing a huge kagitagon, we get go soon now, and Mum Sio, me out soon as soon now, me go. But more one with the healing, they want to go. He's been to about you know, across cow, who got a shin or who is the dog, big spot to the dog, which I have for a shin or more in my capota or some nequito or much muskisha, but who retire for Antosa.
Yksi istuukin säplyviga. Tehän pagam skago ja kan skagissa kiegon ma residential school ga tutsigimaga. Igotsi go hamni kuisketsek. Ei sinua kagittama hetosek. Kakea kapasita sek matsumaskihia. Kiegon maga kioga tutim kai tutima gahtu.
Igual ma misal mo sino en stohtamangan magagis pamihigo ya. Kino school agi tuhtia. Kawe ya wisto no. Abskuto tuasum sunanak pia gona wis pamhaya ko. Gino chaya ko bucha gis kamaya ko tipwataya ko biung gagi tiputa gagi pamihigo ya. Igual me bisisto oxisis wapastamanga. Tanhima oxigas pamihigo ya. Pagaya timo kausti pamihigo. She used to come in here, to us some our elders, I asked. You snang we or dance is a top of it, of the Hawaii, Kamachi, Taki, cheese. And here we eat. I bet I was some pig square, Taki, cheese, it's not more, but we was mangan sa bit of to the periste. Ginata to was a woman was a paktawa to Hucha me was a of Peggy Tonan to Adi, as we bitch to Dr. Wood, the not to go to.
Marsi no itioga na pipik squasya kan skagissa wis na mutin.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Max Moore and saget tawakos Alacross residential school survivor. Ego ga pitu ito mano sa magagisa. Tinago stop we gam sta ki go ya go megi tutsige maga. Ki tamahi sige sino ga guta. Kage swaso check. Ego Willis Jave ka pipik squat yoga. Margareta Stewart tap tapiapi oge go ya. Tama. Ya marsi witit na o ga kyogia o kan tohtoya ko may guti puiti o tsaganan tohtoya. Basta hagi go ya someone maguti o boarding schools o residential schools hagi kagyusi tsaganti higi mas kam go ya ka kyogi go kaisa pamatsya kaisa pigis ko ya Omaga kay si team suya koma. Kagi team suya. Kagi siga po ya kan ma. Igual maga hyogi go. Igi mutamago ya ke gunan hegi go ya. Igu sami sa nos kagi siga koma. Al ka wana hot. We wana tati gunan he. Tuiwa. Nikusitu ni muy piak boga pesta wagi siga itu. Tano sa magagi siga. Iwanista ya kan magip matsuwenno, kipigiskuiwenno, an ma egas semino kaysa matsia kanus kagisagak. Matsumaski hiya gaut nako, minikuiwen, kagit mahito, kagan pahito, kanan pahito, kamawento, kamamoy katsugagi, kamamoy kate, kaisino, higutse, kaitakam gakigunan, hanus magagisag. Igual, capio Maya, como se gasta na água. Igual. Louis, sure. Not unless you want to talk to. Okay, okay. Okay. All right. What is Javi coming up? Okay, merci. Bye bye.
Yeah, that's me. Yeah. Alrighty, good afternoon, good morning, Salatina Kudun Zinik, Kani Robert Marasti Berustala, Robert radio host Leona Ala Crossots in Kola Dun Zinik, Dene Margaret Obishan Ulyed Dun Dene Halhin Dani si, Halyatias. Hello, Margaret, Atlanita.
Asust ile sunt ile doen sa Baurelia.
Nezun Kudlu Adlani then a new class action lawsuit Aliasi and doing press conference na TC.
Si nestano doon lawyer na zon tinutsia ay hotie harayu baya tiejo haru ka no hoya tieo no hachanid antunisi no korajanjo na zwaja.
Yeah, Nezun, I guess that's one of the things and just acknowledgement to DC over the years. But that's a down.
Hotie beganata de kutanasa communities the survivors naratihi. They want to know aho ahi ant utayat ant uyati kudorel yaha dorel I ku natina stakulesi asigayas tiha duelant any andate asisure sinde aha et ilinarastade et ilisit et diha just dila ay kutuho Danaya sandarit alosant at aho and uasi. Ayat ahasural karde yazi bias tia sunt ile danahef.
Nezulat, then just slowly gani kurinila, then betsi honi dealtie, Nezon de la Torlunt, kind of comfortable at an nehanes than arsi. Tanta haya tide bega.
Kunt eha ay ani kundesila like I said. Asira daya tia duelant any andate. Kutuhu asik et arlaja dan it's an aya asi kodorushia dani dana horas karde. Katanya tibet at alosant adorel easy.
Nezu. Kudre Métis Nation of Saskatchewan, I know it's NEC. Etlani then I basit tornut, I lawyered, I know Resh Asi the National, the tornut, then Sarah Dildi, Betset Dion de la Etlani then.
Si sabanezo kotse asakuli dana no hetse niland ilu no ni thani bekanari deland eu. We started off this. We wanted dana betset diu dana ahebe ba asi honen nik ni si bet ore diha doril like hoteno hetse ni hu hoteno hada tu hoteno hananes ni hu ate kont ileni si sapanezo isa si do aso federal government Trudeau asi danet enyo lahario et dini sa dini ate do tant uno hodzi indigenous people no het nila atini adi. Ay akunt uno hodzi jala trudubet asa ayi. Kung aso sienas tanong aso kolverit u asi istani ebezidi iste hoche asont eha ay horis insisaba.
Nezu. And the only seat aneya tire online and now do no ya tidit around the denesu ya tie dok aneya tisi the mil no ya tia yang tu edlani then their school not in deni si no ya ti chugana in deo kole do zinege dena nen zen adarit alani ya tia asu edlani then
Ayit o Asia tie bekes nigit o abelia bet ayas ti sa basunt ili sa bore naili. At the school like dehu at tani yahu siya tie hayas ti hatu I asit tanabe ya tie I destarilu sa ba confusion land enyo tie and u kodi nila wek ani luya tihi. Asi et ile no dere kut we get a strap no henila o diati ku school it's in any de set sonachu set sichu but night daylight e hogeta beba betu cause shine lishini kutana asi harayu school in night dilu set sonachu sichu set taught is school nine the rilu ay say at here Bagayin is last beturis aunt as it do, says Kenneth, Atana you by died school nine the really and was Kenneth only, but better other who no to cause I am merciness and see at you, Tibik is new here.
During Zula, no, I tidit advocacy, nowadays, they can't alant ilanola. Kuik ani Louis Gardner dinyasu, but in number and al nihenila, nen they can't aunaba.
Sa bahont ekulu bias teacher stilu, baga na Mr. Horace ila I don't mention it. It's any quit a self school 9 day 80 estunate in a land any berayas tida stila edini edarayal tide asunt ile si berayas ti Horace ila adan to school 9 ant ut al dihi astunet in a dal vini as it's any quidanli school Isha sit I edadozet dihi ayit I danek ede asi danet an ho den naland ile kuide during nile de ant usi na basunt ilu janung ehinare neskano na to cost ikun to dan na horil to het ihun don't ant uno hel horels assist hini no hananag hevet de la jahi bet adana kore bapane zundani dan kuru justice inatsar la jaila tant udeza bet dihal yahu tant udeza no hananag hotie assistini tutti hajani de esasi no to kwaza no scana ebe barasi Baradani la alosita na kore eder stolzi who salot to the young people what is out there and what you guys are getting. But I listen, but the hero says tanagode ba para sisi no hanila sa nanag eho yini harasi listen. Haru nanag etanasun sinenay te assistini betirikulu nuskana no to cause betayorti becha niene zuhertsiha.
Yeah, Arnik, ani the code dilata ya 19 see. Tamba the hunt aduina dealer just kind of don't do create at the Healing Base Foundation who lay at I school line Daisy in the intergenerational trauma. And kani asayal tila tu nena baila di nila dre that lawsuit si kani ya se bagayal tiu then I go there netu kasu konti si ha ya se no bagani til tu dani then gandre even though tamba then hunt la kwale di nanubet unra
Si sa baho ay sampa tanangant ahas ni noni derde. Si bet urusti hilenasan at tana dungo sa gaya saho. Bet at iayo na rust inastanila. Sa tukazu, sa skano, yit uring thoroughly ni sanastano. Papasampazani ani denastano. Ay hahok anaster. Si eda hahok anaster ilisin. Eat salot in it as school night day. Akut ibana deres ihi. Etinit ikutani lano tosat antu beko deres nila. Kusi si how sit al sorry karo si saba hilisi. Sa kaza chu sa scanner bapan ay ha hook anasterant esi.
Nazu. Ja, doen zinnige Margaret Obershan, massine nestan ja, se sal hun tatin dausal, ja, se hun lidan du da out in a go and then a hayatini aren't you? I know a bunch of no darit on the Pat radio kain la si Margaret bekan un tasas net I foreign because in bush ja, then a hayatini aren't you and then nessa the then a darit thousand.
And the hosalot in a yuneno tehi Marcino Hanasan. Zethia now teu tituk etere society a unirist in other silence. Kolo unafet anithadai takutari lilo. Nos canon na to cause bebat Zethia no not alu. Adu no honorihu. Adu edini to continue the surviving at hodi daily. To a hodi daily. Ay no ni be batulu hitsi de kaya batulu hitsia nos cano na to quase aya slot ina tasarut akte Marcino Hanasansi ayurtsan kurusi.
Masicho Margaret Obishanya se no halun tatin down no halun nia and do zinek I believe in mil Janvir no halyatias and right till about 12 o'clock and then chich el yondi donuts at Daisy so masiner usio and Emil Bahalio was too maybe a tashitita.
City Marcina Nasan Willis, thank you very much. Siri ila ando ta sa kanin tao.
Yeah.
Aya United it and usi on the rest of city which brilliant. Ite it esanaya kilo sa. Ede salot in at up a si katre sahi. Ay other yansi don't jinek eto se a tea halt or si.
Masi Margaret Obishan and doen zinnig mana get Emil Janvir no halyan say yes tiasa. So Kani no but yeah tinint ala you know a lot of things that dread then a higher school as in Daisy yeah a lot of addictions you can't see mental health then it's a the hot online so Nets et dear in the sits neither than not down this so other new nowadays then about this so yeah the another survivor earlier I guess last year I like seeing that I yeah titan nothing yani see Emil Janvier doing zinek a then a hayatia da haring town then a tia and then ya za bahalias tia do dani then see the soon seek and that's a down de la Rome delins and a hayao ostun laxin nano and I remember ya tia ani thele say a tia he chuganain deo as in task at nenathi yao henny. Course say a tia ya il ti henny. So doing zinek a yansa no health at dare. The tailors towards Emil Jan Ver Atlanta Emil.
Nezon da var
Nabar Liano Zina.
Religion sa nade
Yeah.
religion there.
Yeah, already, you know, it's
I've been a visit on Marcy's needed. I will you learn nothing.
that answers a Kelly, you know, and good doing again, I TC Emil Atlanta then don't do the new lawsuit holding on the I believe 2005 at least Yalyani soon Thasi, but another one holding there Atlanta then Ega.
Well, and this lawyer then a shan Zibalia Nigi. Holly Bayan Yo eat an do, you get a do, you get a do to that TSC. Saying Lele, I don't think it's in the do. You are don't oo hold that only. Kai the Anna ye. They are cheaper digu. I need our business here, you were this sign and low. But digu, I don't say. They are cheap. The nearest is Ilan Halana. Hotel the ni Arik on Dana. Dano hits a D on the Lano. No, nigga, Lano day. Nino when ye hon la. Hunt a whole and on such. You was kissing than late loom. No need no help. Say no, the Hanazun on the sun. But and this is school that's in day, but hold on, still. But still, 50. The last see. Bias horse in and a sneak holly horse in the collie do it on the same. Collie, you think a hotel that a day? How I was there is a Saskatchewan, you know. You rest and then no hell on all some. Thousand, this is thousand. NDP, they ain't an ill do whom. Go there, government has a data ill the rest on there. No seeing no health in either in la lila. Nastana city. Then a yachila ide. No had say no the had no had say no the ole. Then not doing things February honey there 75 a for sound 17 years to be daily 20 years asking. I can aster ni musha aster that dandu. I think I don't do hunts and smooth say no Zealand or what do hunt say no neither those sons.
Yeah, then it's on its an la. Could there a teen nation te then it's enya the zero dilu torn it's edu. I know Rome di nahu dilu laxi nano torlu and dirt I lawyer and it's enya see torlu da ne ni hanila. Tlani then you know all that support Métis nation it's in.
But the Hadesu are lila. No send ni a halt as on there. Rotti hunde sampadi rotti hu ne alchiti ilchi on the lab. He had mercy then a stand to Métis nation. We said that new Sampa lawyer had you he halt as a he don't stand there and the sentence.
Yeah, or any sea shank and that's a deal that's but the Tay not sure, you know, don't you seek and that's a data shan the has it, you know, and the dana or dealer cole then it's babadat ilondi and you know acknowledge that LLC, you know, the is Indian day school, boarding school, Johnny then, you know, el Kesuhul Thailand as Tenakontu Richt on Yarsi. Kune Johnny then.
الكاسة هو التخيل land own the First Nations. Harley bel senuni there. You can do harley bel senuni there senuni there. Kuno ni assume Dory K and a day. Hunt a hill and then no ni hold it than a date loon. So could it loans ask that a date loans in school like this? None. I made nations, he must say, instead of near.
Yeah, and you know, it's high. Yeah, so yeah, teen Lenny la, but like saying no hey tie do a shatik, you know, see do musha the Nastralan and musha neither, and you know, it's a coincidence land down the line, you know, but nakunta kanestraza, and you know, no hey tie el tira do. Then an order it out and true all across or not okay, see, then a not daisy. Ja, sa bagay ay tini na tu na ya tihil chuganain dio task at nena thin yao na ya tie ba ay ay tiu and don shun no ba da harin tana ni ya tia Johnny then a shun kunt is te na date show and shun acknowledgement kan it try.
Well, listen, politics can answer now. Who shall answer the done? Holland, of course, in him. They are cheated. And now that you the higher team who now you cheated, they are the who gold day done in Delu. They course in a lot in the area director no it's but they are you. Yeah, and not true than a true, but the higher team, then I get a bit, no head home. Ko no need then lately on the lam. I hunt a ho and la a zone child who has sorry at a sorry they can I and a hand but the highest team I here then hunt a do Rome then they say Tila Kanu do some Rome then I here at then I tea. Kanu do first time history it's in less than that. Any that only there. Really, I did say she who he so it do who. As in near they say he would have been near as they say he. We couldn't have done it without you, that dollar. You so they asked here, Jah, mercy, mercy. The Zoom.
Ne zone is I, you know, and ne zite not as I, you know, and do know it here. During zone the ladok and no it here dit I see, and so no it here and it here much more meaning, you know, to it's in a should no need to do read there.
Und das die hat hier die war ja hier und er dann Tulosi. Hier das halt Tesla Get noch Bailu. Du hast noch Bailand und die Leute. Ja noch Bailu noch nicht. Deine Hell hit das ja.
Yeah. Yeah, Nezu, and I guess it all tie. No, you know, and it's a daisy. Sadun, I guess it all time. Like, you know, how you tiere conti do tionela, you know, a shalot in a didila, and that means we're relatives. Connie then collect the is gets a day, and that's a day on the nest and RC.
Se banane sternes nog niet ten ongeveer. Het is dat die hele nu hij het hield aan het oor nisse hoeder nisse. Tot die laat het zeker stuur hij het die. Tot die dan het hier then Jala new. Tutti la santa urtliske. Ja, urtliske hun lignende. Der er nu kende dati. Dohu anikala. Dati hun de la.
Yeah.
Den er hans. Den er gode sound de la dohum.
Yeah, you know, in the zone de la dene ni ha dene gode da ya another day dari di la whole line ya tide. You know, how to il trende in the zone de la not only the school basilu but no ya tia ati da tu ya dene ni ha. Kunes thenar sila.
Und de la no ha tie bechai ta ha duesen. No ha tie bechai ta de no ha chala ni ti heridi. Anu ha tie e veriti ha duesen.
Yeah, ne zumasi ner usion doing zinek email alliance alliance. You know, it's good to see you again. You know, a couple of times ne on the call. Na ba due on the last room by bagayan but sinnes and way that you see ya na ya tire net or owner ya tire but or out and then a healthy yeah. So mas sooner usion another day as I 19 at Lilosa.
Und de la.
Yeah.
Olo si ho on.
Then a hayatini are in a banonus.
Well, I seen the hayat here, the chaita had duesen. No teach chaita, then no hachala ni chaita, ne sanda santa. I know hayat here not so. What to taita, then is zone. A sada le do. A chana till elu. He didn't ranu the. Mercy.
Merci, Mel. You know, Chich Elion dia so Tion and Heat in Atlinosa. Sinesa.
On May 23rd, no day. MNLA, John.
May 23rd. Okay. Nekanastas, no sir.
477 Carter Street West.
477 Carter Street.
Cooney.
Okay.
And 1206 Wolf Avenue.
Wolf Avenue.
Saskatchewan Drive. Yeah.
Oh yeah, west side.
Mushani Yare, yes, Saskatchewan Drive, Yare, it's about 4 or 5 blocks, Wolf Avenue, the corner house. Lazarus Latina, the course.
But can he tie land? Yeah, you're so yeah. So yeah.
1206 Wolf Avenue.
Then it's on 9 down the line, then Mushja.
Then it's on it, and it's a Basanel on it. If you can 25 years, it's in the Uncle.
Oh, yeah.
It's shallow with the railroad area on not dating Jala. There's only daily. Then it's on Carre Day in Lou Nilyala. What to ho and Licole coach Hona Samila Nikati, Sunti do need day Nicanas. Do own San Holland. And I go Yala, season career there, then either, then and be the lunin ahut won't worse.
Ni Nelson and then a ninja do another.
I don't what's Taka heat as it 25 years I there. 6 months to 1 year, it's not a rule, say. A heat as ne. And native see Kayla is an honest. Is an antidote to a snarl.
Yeah. Nezum, see Nesa doons in a case, I'll Yeah, no barrel, young lady doons in a case. And do must see her who soon sell it in a Jandari Tias, Robert Moras Dichu. I know Doris, I see Bonnie Church, and I like across Bay, Jans Bay, all that area. We're live, right?
Absolutely.
Alrighty. So yeah, Robert, what do you think about today's press conference?
I was, as usual, very impressed with the way things went. The organizers did a very good job. The people, the representatives that spoke were absolutely awesome. They did a very good job. They didn't forget anything that much. They think they told the complete story in terms of what is and has happened and what's going to happen from here on in. So the major thing is that there is a lawsuit that was submitted back in December of 2022 concerning the Isla Lacrosse boarding school. And now that's moving forward. And from here on in, we don't know how long it's going to take.
Mm-hmm.
But hopefully, this lawsuit will bring both governments to the negotiating table. This is what the people have always wanted.
Yeah, yeah. To
Mhm.
be inclusive, it's what it sounds like. The people I've listened to this morning, a bit of the agenda and some of the information that is shared, and the Indian Day School and the boarding school are included in this lawsuit. So a lot of people are impacted. They did say they don't know if everybody's still alive yet, but I'm sure it's going to be a few year process, and but to get it moving forward is a good thing.
So many generations of people have already gone beyond, and these are people, our own relations. I'm 72 years old now, and some of these residential school survivors that you saw here are older than I am. So there's 6 generations of residential school survivors here today. The first generations, those ones that have gone behind us, ahead of us, have more stories. I recently spoke to an elder. She was over 80 years old, and she was in there when she was just a little girl, 11 or 12 years old when she went in the early 1930s. I think 1933, she was already in Isle Cross boarding school.
Oh, wow.
Yes, I've been there for a long time.
A long time, yeah.
Yes.
And I think you mentioned too in one of your questions, your great grandmother knew Louis Riel. I think you mentioned.
She heard about Louis Riel.
Mm-hmm.
She knew what Louis Riel was all about.
Okay.
And I used to run to her when I ran away from the boarding school in Isle Cross. So the question that I was asking was, is the government still at war with the Métis? Is that why they're not recognizing our boarding school?
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
what I was referring to.
Yeah, and now you live in Malacrosse. Now the Athabasca constituency has Sass Party. I mean, he's from Clearwater River Dene
Yes,
Nation.
Salome. He's a really good guy. I like him. I think he's very sincere.
Mhm.
Even though he's sitting with a government that doesn't recognize the residential school in Isle Cross. I think Jimmy LeMay is very sincere. I think he will do the right thing and trying to get his government to recognize the residential school survivors. He's an amazing man.
Yeah, yeah, and that's one of the hopes here, for
Mhm.
everybody. As you mentioned too, everybody is getting older, but the memories don't fade. As I
No.
just talked to Emil there, he was a bit emotional. Margaret is the same way, and I've heard your story too in the
Mhm.
conference last year. So a lot of people still need healing, and it's not just about the money, but to build that foundation for mental health support. For your grandchildren or someone else's grandchildren, right? That's very important.
Very much so. People want some closure. Once this has gone behind us, and then we can start to heal.
Mhm.
We can begin to heal. The healing process will begin once the governments have recognized it and we receive our compensation, whatever the compensation will be.
Mhm.
And then we will do what we can to get back to health, to good health. Try and lose those awful memories that we have. The memories are so terrible. From the interviews that I do as a podcaster, as the last lady that I was talking about the one in her 80s. I won't name her, but she was raped when she was 12 years old at the convent where she was at in Isle Cross.
Yeah.
These are the kind of stories that we don't hear about. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, there's and a lot of that, even saying that word in an open air, right? It's not very wide open.
No, it's
So,
not.
you
It's
know,
not. People are afraid to use it.
Yeah.
I use it because it's the truth.
the
The
truth.
truth has
Yeah.
to be told. And we're not hearing we're hearing partial truths. We're not hearing the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Yeah.
And that's what should be heard. But we're not.
Yeah, you know, and it's very hard, you know, for a lot of people that haven't dealt with a lot of the pain, you know, it's very hard for that information to come across too, right? Because emotion takes over and
It gets stuck.
Yeah.
It gets bogged down in your emotional state. It's really hard. Once you feel the emotions overfill you, and then you're lost for words. You lose your words. I know now that I'm sitting here and I'm not talking about myself as a student, as a client or as a member of the residential school. I'm just sitting here being a host and being us, and I can talk about it
Yeah.
and not feel all that emotion, and it's okay for me to say that, and I'm not making the story up. It's the truth, and I have it all on video and on audio, and so the proof is there.
Yeah.
And it just has to be heard, you know. And people are not listening, even when they hear it. I don't know why Harper changed his mind. He said live on radio, we will recognize the boarding school in Isle Cross. So when he went back to Ottawa, what happened? What made him change his mind to make him revoke or reverse what he said about recognizing the Isle Cross boarding school?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure there's a lot of history too that could be political, but, you know, I think the most important thing is to share people's stories so we can make everybody comfortable and uncomfortable too, because a lot of this is not something, you know, as we've seen in the last couple of years here since the discovery in Kamloops. So a lot of these stories have been coming out and it's in the media, and it's good that we can share it in our own languages, Robert.
It is absolutely wonderful that we can share it in our own languages. Quis mio siniwanma, tawihta makiwama, gakiawiak tan stuhta, aniga gaskihta, sigama tani hiawichik, aputsamina, danete sa pigisui, igaga nitagaya simochik, tan stuhta mogiwa, igunanma, umatsumuna, akamimuna, takuamutama, kiogitsu, tiumakan tuhtoya, tagawin stuhtamik, tan sumagagispaik, tan sugagispamhitsik, awasak, niya nani tahtapapunitsik, isipuhtahitsik, unigigoawa, iwanehatsik, igaskitahko, ipiwistahko, muutsen stuhtamokiwanama, tani humagaispaigoma, tani humagaspuhtahigoya, muutsen stuhtamagiwama susquaki once nokiwa, ispigwen, isipuhtitsikigwa, magigoigwa, yayatsik. They lost everything. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's very good to hear. I don't understand any of it, but you know, I tried. Tapwe is good, but you know, I want to thank you today for joining me, the Métis Nation. Just a shout out to them for allowing us to do this. And you know, I do smell lunch in
Yes.
in the airways here, but. So we're going to finish her off. And Robert, I appreciate you. It's an honor to sit here with you and to be able to share, you know, the podcast radio world with you.
And thank you so much, Willis. It's been a pleasure co-hosting with you here today.
Yeah.
For all of you listening out there, keep on listening to Willis.
Yeah.
He's a good man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Masina, who seems to have a doing Balao Leo, and then Durst, see. Patchen Naxon Bunchurid, not Daisy Masid, and Pat Degener, I know about Ani La Radio, and then then ati podcast oga then not daisy masina her hopefully I but asi her ultina don't I na in tini si eight Robert babanonus alu at in balaulia.
Yes. And if you want to listen to me, and if you get bored and you want to listen to some good Cree and Michif language, you can find me every morning from Monday to Friday on CILXradio.com.
CILXradio.com. I go say. Mo estás?
For sure.
Let's see. Mo estás tapui. And that's it.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day.
Way to go, Willis.